In the year 1191 AD, the echoes of a bygone Crusade era reverberated through the lands. Saladin, the valiant conqueror of Jerusalem, had recently set forth on a campaign into Syria, capturing city after city. His relentless advance, however, came to a halt during the siege of Acre, where the Christian army, with the timely arrival of Richard the Lionheart, the newly crowned King of England, managed to seize it from Saladin's grasp. Before the siege of Acre, Pope Gregory VIII fervently championed a call for a renewed crusade to reclaim the holy city of Jerusalem. Responding to this divine summons, the Crusaders, led by the indomitable Richard the Lionheart, King of England, and the resolute Philip Augustus, King of France, embarked on a perilous mission to liberate Jerusalem, which had fallen to Saladin in 1187. Following the triumphant capture of Acre in 1191, Richard, astutely aware of the strategic importance of Jaffa's port, deemed it necessary to secure this vital stronghold before venturing towards Jerusalem. In August, Richard initiated a meticulous march down the coastal path from Acre toward Jaffa. Saladin, with his unwavering determination to safeguard Jerusalem from recapture, swiftly mobilized his forces to impede the Crusaders' relentless advance. Richard orchestrated the march with painstaking attention to detail, acutely mindful of the lessons learned from the devastating defeat at Hattin. He recognized that his army's foremost need was a source of water, while the scorching heat posed the gravest danger. Pressed for time, Richard adopted a measured approach, guiding his army solely during the morning hours before the sun's oppressive heat peaked. Frequent rest stops, strategically positioned near sources of water, became the norm. Meanwhile, the fleet sailed in close proximity along the coast, providing essential supplies and a sanctuary for the wounded. Richard also considered the ever-present threat of enemy raiders and hit-and-run attacks, leading him to maintain a tight formation for his column. Though the skirmish tactics of Saladin's archers provoked and tested the patience of Richard's army, the Lionheart's sagacious leadership ensured unwavering discipline and order amidst these trying circumstances. In early September, Saladin realized that harassing the Frankish army with a limited force wouldn't suffice, so he decided to commit his entire army for a decisive offensive. On the fateful morning of September 7th, 1191, the Crusader army, determined and vigilant, advanced in a well-organized formation. The core infantry, composed of melee warriors, archers, and crossbowmen, protected the front and flanks of the column. Henry of Champagne led this steadfast contingent, which included the vital baggage train positioned at the rear. In the vanguard, elite Templar knights led the charge on the right flank, while Breton and Angevin cavalry, guided by Grandmaster Robert de Sablé, bolstered the forward movement. On the opposing left flank, a coalition of Flemish, French, and Jerusalem knights under Grandmaster Garnier de Naples readied themselves. At the center, 4 squadrons of Poitevin, Norman, and Anglo-Norman horsemen, commanded by Guy of Lusignan, advanced, with Richard the Lionheart at the helm. This crusading host numbered around 15,000, including 2,000 heavily armored Latin knights. As this formidable force progressed, a looming forested expanse unfurled to their left, and it was then that Saladin's army, like a spectre materializing from the very shadows, came into view. With military precision, they assumed their own battle formation. The Sultan himself, a figure of commanding presence, positioned himself squarely in front of the forested curtain that graced the left flank of the Crusader marching column. Accompanied by his elite personal guard, he stood resolute. Lined up before him stood the amalgamated infantry and cavalry contingents, hailing from Syria, Damascus, and Saladin's prized guard, led by his son, Al-Afdal. The Crusader right wing, spearheaded by the Templar Knights, arrived at the outskirts and plantations of Arsuf around 9 a.m. Recognizing his enemy's fatigue and their quest for a suitable encampment, Saladin seized the opportunity to make his decisive move. Muslim infantry, lightly armored but armed with bows and javelins, surged forward, while horse archers galloped into position. As they came within range, a devastating onslaught of missiles struck the left wing of the Crusader ranks. Ayyubid infantry rained arrows and hurled javelins, while their cavalry executed lightning-fast hit-and-run attacks. The heavily armored Hospitaliers and other Crusader units on the left wing, while suffering few casualties themselves, witnessed their horses falling victim to the onslaught. However, the sheer numerical superiority of the Muslims threatened to disrupt the Crusader ranks, causing them to slow down and separate from the main army column. A continuation of this perilous situation would risk encirclement and annihilation as they inched closer to Arsuf. On the opposite flank, Saladin's light cavalry and skirmishers began to encircle the Crusaders from the seaward side, menacing them from the rear. Despite the provocation, the Crusaders held their ground, for Richard hesitated to engage in a mass battle under Saladin's terms. Yet the Hospitaliers, eager for combat, sent a messenger to request permission to attack, but their request was denied. The Crusaders teetered on the brink of charging without orders, and only the immense will and charisma of the Lionheart himself prevented them from breaking formation. Discipline and cohesion were paramount. As pressure mounted on the left, the Grand Master of the Hospitallers implored Richard for permission to attack once more, and again it was denied. Now, Richard found himself on the cusp of reaching the safety of Arsuf, yet his hand was forced. The Marshal of the Hospitaller Order, driven by a melange of anger, humiliation, and an insatiable thirst for battle, led a charge without orders, and thousands of Crusaders followed suit in an instant. Observing this, Richard made a decisive call. The unplanned charge deviated from his original strategy, but he commanded his entire army to charge and reinforce the beleaguered left wing. The Lionheart himself, along with his personal contingent, joined the embattled Hospitaller cavalry in the charge. In the immediate vicinity of the Christians, the Muslim line crumbled under the overwhelming might of the nightly charge. As the dust and chaos of battle engulfed them, many Muslims routed toward the nearby forest. Richard, reportedly displaying ferocity and valor befitting a medieval warrior monarch, fought with relentless determination, claiming the lives of numerous adversaries. A similar scene of carnage unfolded across the battlefield, with Muslims retreating to the rear. However, they were not yet defeated. Saladin, rallying his elite guard and units that had fallen back, sought to regroup. Seizing the momentum of his initial victory, Richard led a second charge with his entire army, quashing Saladin's attempts at a turnaround. Many Muslims perished as they fled, but Richard wisely halted his army before reaching the tree line, mindful of the potential ambush that lay in wait. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded, it became clear that the Christian victory, while significant, was not complete. Saladin's army, though bloodied and beaten, remained intact. The Crusader cavalry had suffered only minor losses, but the foot infantry had paid a heavier price, with around 700 brave souls falling in the heat of combat. In contrast, the Muslim forces had borne the brunt of the carnage, with an estimated 7,000 men lost during the ferocious clash. Despite the tactical victory at Arsuf, it was void of immediate strategic results. Richard, resolute in his mission, continued his march towards Jaffa. Saladin's once proud army, now a shadow of its former self, retreated from Arsuf, nursing their wounds but not broken. It was a battle that had shifted the sands of power, but the path to Jerusalem remained elusive. In the subsequent weeks, the Crusaders went on to capture the strategic port city of Jaffa, marking a significant achievement in their campaign. However, as the campaigning season of 1191 drew to a close, it seemed evident that the ultimate prize of Jerusalem would have to wait until the next year. As the seasons changed, the fall and winter of 1191-92 brought about the opening of possible peace talks and a truce between Richard and Saladin. It was a time of reflection and negotiation, signaling the beginning of the end of the Third Crusade. Nevertheless, the Battle of Arsuf played a pivotal role in tarnishing Saladin's once unblemished reputation, earned at the Battle of Hattin 4 years earlier. It also served to cement the legacy of Richard the Lionheart as one of the great military strategists of the medieval era, leaving an enduring mark on history's pages.
On this channel, we are putting together narrative historical cinematic battles. Make sure to subscribe and thank you for watching. See you on the next one.